Welcome to our second part of Python programming language tutorial. So in the first class, we just understood why we need to use Python programming language, what are the advantages of using Python programming language, and what are the features and benefits of learning Python as a programming language. Then we learned about how to install Python. Then we started off with the basic commands. We just interpreted some commands as well. So we just understood how to initialize a variable and just executed some basic print statements as well. So now what we'll be trying to do is we'll be going more and more deeper into Python, and we'll try to understand how actually Python is helpful with its data structures as well as the different functionalities that are involved in Python. So first step is we'll try to understand the various parts. So we'll start off with the hands-on now. Yeah, so we will continue with another Python module or script, or you can load the same previous one, so that is not a problem. We can continue with the same thing. Yeah, so starting off with the basics of Python programming language. So yesterday we were able to do two things, that is able to execute your if else statement, and then you are able to execute even the nested if statement. So today we'll be dealing with the statements that is our for loop. So what is the for loop that is being involved? So what we have is, yesterday we learned about conditional statements where you had a condition, that is if else or else if, which you represented as elif. But with the help of your looping statements or your looping statements, what we try to do is we have our for loop as well as while loop, which will help you to execute the same bit of code again and again until your condition is completed. So that is what is your for loop as well as your while loop doing. So how to initialize a for loop inside your Python programming language is pretty simple. So if you have learned other programming languages like C or C++, obviously you know that how to initialize a for loop. So you would use for int x is equal to 0, then you would use a condition I, like int I is equal to 0, I is less than 50, then you would give a condition called I++. So this is how you would initialize the loop, and then you would put the condition within the brackets, and that is how you could execute the for loop. But the major thing that you need to consider here is right now, so this particular form of for loop is not available in Python programming language. But what you could do is you could initialize it in another way. See, basically what is happening here is, this is the initialization part. So where you're initializing the variable, then there is a condition. So here it is the condition. So then you have your iteration. So iteration is nothing but increasing or decreasing. So that is what is happening in this for loop. But the important thing to consider here is, in Python that is not possible. So you have another way of doing things in Python. So first and foremost, what you need to do is, if you want to iterate between a range of numbers, so for is correct, in is very important, in range function. So what is this range function doing is, from the starting to the ending, so it will create a range. So this is nothing but, okay, you need to mention a variable for I in range. So this is nothing but an iterating variable I in range 0 to 100. So this is similar to for I is equal to 0. Okay, so I is less than 100, then I++. So this is an exact statement that is equivalent to for I is equal to 0, I is less than 100, I++. So one thing you need to consider is, the starting number is considered, but the last number is not considered. So it is nothing but I will range from 0 to 99, but the 100 number is not considered, only till 99 it will be considered. So what is this range function is nothing but, range is telling us all the numbers starting from 0 to 100 is included in this range. So what is for I in this range is, it is nothing but a simple English language convention. For I in the range 0 to 100 is nothing but for each and every value that I takes in the range 0 to 100. So that is what it is telling. So if I want to print out I, that is nothing but numbers from 0 to 100. So I will use the print option. But one more thing you need to understand right now, guys, after every statement or after every conditional or looping statement, you need to give a colon. So this colon is telling that your condition is being assigned and your condition assignment has been finished. So you have finished your assigning the condition. Now everything is nothing but execution of the statement which belongs to the for loop. So if I if I don't give out an indentation space, for example, if I don't give out an indentation space here, so this statement doesn't belong to this for loop, so it is considered as another statement. So very important to give indentation, so that is telling this like print statement is belonging to this for loop, so very important to understand. So one thing is always in case of Python, so whenever you are using for statements or if statements, so you have your if condition. So very important, after each and every condition you need to go type in a colon, then if you click on enter, obviously the 4 indentations will be taken place. So like the best way to like leave an indent, so if you like if you are typing some program by mistake, you come to the base indent, you just type a tab space. So tab space is nothing but 4 spaces, so that is the indent given to each and everything. So if you want more and more indents, you can keep using tab spaces, which will act as indentation. So what is this indentation? This will tell which particular line of which particular code belongs to which statement. So very important is after your conditional statements, so you need to give a colon, as well as your looping statements, you need to give a colon. After colon, you need to leave an indent stating that all the statements with single indent or with the indent equivalent to this belongs to the same for loop. So for example, if I have my print I here, so it doesn't belong to my for loop. So very important to understand. So to print it, it is same. I will print the I values. So it should print me 0 to 99. Yeah, it is printing numbers from 0 to 99 but not till 100. So why is that? I've already told you. The thing is, while printing any numbers or while executing any numbers, one thing to understand is Python always will take in the form of, that is so the basic thing that we understood right now is to implement any for loop, the whole syntax is in this: for the variable in the range so and so, that is nothing but from 0 to any number, or you can use it in strings as well. So I will come with how to use for loops in strings later, but very important to understand is nothing but for a lesser quantity in a range of larger quantity. For a small simplified unit in the range of multiple unit or a large quantity is what is a for statement. So the main thing that you would try to ask me is if there is a reverse thing, that is if I want to decrement my loop, so how would I do it? So if I try to decrement my loop, that is nothing but I want to start from 100 and end at 0. So it is simple: for I in range 100 comma 0. So let us try and see whether it works or not. It is not working because by default the range function will always increment its values. For example, it will start from 100 but it will keep on incrementing. But what if you want to decrement? So you need to add this parameter called as -1. So what is this telling? My starting range is 100, my ending range is 0, but I am decrementing and not incrementing my values. So this is why it is telling that I am decrementing all of my values. So if I try to run my loop now, yes, you can see that each and every value is getting decremented, that is from 100 to 1. Why not 0? Because I told you it takes in the starting value but excludes the last value, so it is nothing but the last value -1. So the thing to understand here is pretty simple. By default, if you give, it will increment by 1. So if you want to increment by 2 or 3, or if you want to decrement, you need to mention by what range it should decrement. For example, if I want to loop from 0 to 100 but I want to loop it by 2 numbers. So if you didn't understand what is looping by 2 numbers, it is nothing but for I is equal to 0, so I is less than 100, so then I is equal to I plus 2. So if you want to increment I by 2 numbers, so if this is the statement that you want to increment, so what you will try to do is you will tell that it is starting from 0 and ending at 100, but the incremental factor is 2. So very important to mention the incremental factor. So this incremental factor is telling us I need to increment my value of I by 2 each and every time my for loop gets executed. So what this should do now, it should print the range of values from 0 to 100, but like it should add 2 every time. So it is incrementing by 2. Let us see whether this works or not. Yes, it is working fine. So you have 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So if you want to print even numbers, pretty simple. You start from 0, end at whatever range you want, increment it by 2. So you will be able to print the value. So that is how your increment is working. So you can increment this. So similarly, if you want to decrement it by any range, it is, you can choose the maximum range, you can choose the minimum range. then you can tell how much to decrement. So that is how you can run your for loops inside your Python programming language. So after for, we have our while loop. So what is while loop? See, basically for is nothing but an incremental loop where you have your incrementing variable or decrementing variable, and you have a range of values until which it keeps on getting executed. So the iteration is happening in this loop. So what is the main difference between a for loop and while loop is, while loop will just check for the condition. So for example, if I have so if I have x is equal to 0, so then what I'll do is while x is less than 100. So here I am giving a condition stating that this is the condition. So if x is less than 100, then execute this statement. So what I will execute, print x. But the thing is, it keeps on, it will be an infinite loop, because this condition is never getting the condition is always satisfied. So this will never come out of my condition. So if I want my x to come out of the condition, I need to increment by x by some value, or do some operations which would make me make the value of x not get satisfied, and this loop should end, and it can print another statement that condition has been completed. So if I want to satisfy my condition, so this is how. So the thing is, first time it printed, so directly I incremented by 100, so I'll increment it by 10 now. So it is telling me 0, 10, 20, 90. So as soon as my condition is incremented, so it will come out of this while loop, and it will print this particular statement. So very important to understand what is the difference between your while loop and for loop. In for loop, you don't need to mention the iterations. For example, for x in range, 0 to 100. So this is the same thing, but you don't need to mention that you are incrementing x. So this range function is telling me it is from 0 to 100, but this x will be self-incrementing by 1 if you don't mention. So if you mention, it will be self-incrementing by 10 or whatever values you want to. So you don't need to increment anything in for loop. It will get self-incremented or self-decremented as like whenever you give a condition here. But in case of while loop, while is just checking for the condition, whether this condition is satisfied or not. If this condition is satisfied, then the statements inside the while loop will be printed. So if the condition is not satisfied, it will come out of the while loop and execute the next set of statements. So this is the main difference you need to understand between a while loop and a for loop. So how your for loop is helping is, it is basically both are interusable. You can use a for loop instead of a while loop, and a while loop instead of a for loop. But totally depends on your usage and how you can build applications using this looping statement. So two looping statements that you need to consider. One is your for loop and other one is your while loop. So one more thing in for loop you need to consider is your break and continue statement. So what is your break and continue statements, we'll try to understand. So one thing to understand about break is, so whenever for example you want to print, you have your range from 0 to 100, but you want to print till only 50. So after 50 you need to stop printing it. So how you will do is, if x is equal to 50, so what you will try to do is you will try to break. So what is break is nothing but abrupt stopping of execution of the program. So if x is equal to 50, then you need to break. So after breaking, so what we'll try to do is we'll try to print the value of x each time. So what this particular statement is doing is, it is trying to stop the abrupt execution of the program, or it is trying to stop the execution of the program whenever this condition is satisfied. So whenever we have our loop in picture, so we have our loop termination statement. So one thing to understand here is, your loop can be terminated in two ways. So how will you terminate your for loop? That is nothing but whenever this all conditions are satisfied, whenever the condition is totally satisfied and it comes out of the for loop. But the thing is, whenever the condition is satisfied, it directly comes out of the for loop and starts executing statements like this. I'll print just for loop has been completed. So for loop is completed. So this is the thing that I will tell you. So this is telling me that whenever this for loop is completed on its own, so this will be printed, that is for loop is completed. So if I don't use break, the meaning is such that after entire value or after entire for loop is being completed, then the statement is getting executed. So I don't want my for loop to get executed. So if my x is midway, that is if my x is equal to 50, so you can use braces, or if you don't want to use braces, you can directly mention the condition as well. So if x is equal to 50, so what I will do is I will break. So this is telling me that when x value reaches 50, what is the current value of x? 0. So after incrementing 1 by 1 by 1, when your x value is reaching 50, you need to break. So what is break? It is stopping the loop execution and directly coming to this print statement. So it is not executing 51 to 100. So this statement is not getting executed. It will print only till 50. So after 50, it will stop execution, because when it is 50, I will tell break. So what is this break doing? It is stopping my execution of the program. That is nothing but stopping the execution of my loop and coming to the next set of statements. So it is not program, but it is a loop. So whenever you want to exit the loop abruptly, or you give a condition to exit the loop, so this is nothing but loop breaking condition. So if x is equal to 50, I want to stop the execution of the program. So let us see what will happen. Yeah, so until 49 it executed. What is this? For x in range 0 to 100. So what it will do is, if x is equal to 50, the condition is not satisfied, it will print it. So since it is self-incrementing, so it keeps on incrementing till 49. So then when x is equal to 50, it is breaking. So what is breaking? It came out of this entire for loop and it started printing this condition. So that is what this particular break statement did. So break is very important to understand. So whenever you write in the break statement, it will stop the execution of this loop and come out of the loop to execute the other statement. So after understanding this break statement, we have another statement called as continue. So what is this continue statement? Is pretty simple. So if you use continue statement, so whenever this condition comes into picture, it will stop this particular looping part. For example, when you have x is equal to 50, it will stop executing that particular line, but it will start executing after the particular looping statement. Yeah, so coming to this continue statement, it is pretty simple to understand. So we already know that if the break statement is being applied, what happens is it comes out of this entire looping part. So what this continue statement does is, it doesn't come out of this entire loop, but it will skip this particular execution. So if x is equal to 50, what it will do is, it will not execute this part, that is nothing but whenever I type in continue, it won't print this 50. So then after 50 it will start printing. So what this is doing is, it is stopping this particular condition execution. Only this condition it is trying to stop the execution, but all the conditions it will try to execute. But what if I use break here is, so if I type in break here, what is happening is, after this condition my loop will not get executed at any cost. So after the execution of this particular statement, after the condition is getting satisfied, it doesn't execute any part of my total loop. But continue, it will just skip for this condition. So whenever I have this condition in picture, so it will just stop execution for this condition. Rest all the conditions it will try to execute. So that is how your continue statement is working. So if I try to execute this, it will just skip my whole it will not skip my whole execution, but it will skip only the 50th part. See here, after 49 we are not getting 50, we are directly getting 51. So why am I getting 51? So this continue is telling me that whenever x is equal to 50, when it tells continue, it doesn't execute this statement, it will rerun the loop with the next variable. So when x is equal to 49, this is executed. Since condition is not satisfied, it will print. When x is equal to 50, yes, the condition is satisfied, it will come to this for loop. Whenever it sees this continue, it won't continue this. Okay, it won't try to execute this statement. Directly it will go to the next iteration. So that is how your continue and your break statement is working in case of your for loops. Okay, so basically what we try to understand here is how your while loop and your for loop is working. So what is the next step in our Python programming language to understand is pretty simple. So what are all the data types that we have in our particular Python programming language? So one type of data that we have is number. So other type of data that we have is string. So the next type of data that we have is a list. Then you have tuple. Then you have a dictionary. So these are the 5 basic data types in the case of Python. So whenever someone asks you what is the data type, what are the basic data types in Python, you need to answer this. That is only 5 primitive data types. That is a number, nothing but number can be in positive, negative, integer, decimal, any number for that matter. Then string is nothing but a single character or a group of characters. Then we'll try to understand what is list, tuple and dictionary. So we have just understood how to initialize a number, how to initialize a decimal number, and how to work with the basic mathematical operations also. But what we'll try to understand is how to access the strings and how to work with strings. So what is a string basically? String is telling you it is a set of characters or a single character. Basically, it can be your English language characters from A to Z or numbers or special characters. So all the things are included in this particular string data format. So what we'll try to do is we'll initialize the strings. So basically you understood that your Python programming language is dynamically allocated by like programming language where you need not initialize the type of data that you are storing. So whatever data that you store, that type will be automatically initialized. So that is happening here. So I will name my string as str. So okay, I will name my string as str1. So string 1 is my variable name. So I will initialize my data. So I will initialize my data, that is hello world. So this is my string. So if I want to print my string, it is print str1. So that is my string that I am printing. So I am able to print my string. So that is how you initialize a string and you can print your string. But the major thing that you need to understand now is if I want to work with parts of the string. So major issues or major things with the strings are we will not be using the entire string every time. So what we'll do is we'll just bifurcate our entire strings into different parts or different like portions so that we can use it in other times, or we can play with the strings to get some data out of the entire string. So that is what we'll be doing. So the first thing that I would try to help you understand is to get in individual characters from the string. So we have a string that is hello world. So what if I want to get this E separated? So what I will do is I will use indices. So what is indices is nothing but how you have your roll numbers or your unique numbers in your school. So you have indices for each and every string. So what is this indices telling you? In which place or in which location or in which like a unique number is given to your string. Yeah, so which unique number is given to your string? So you to basically understand, string is nothing but a set of characters and you have your indices which is relating your string. So indices is like your roll number which is relating your string character, that is nothing but each and every character of your string to a number. So for example, in this hello world we have H which is defined by index 0, then we have E which is defined by index 1, so L with index 2 and another L with index 3 and O with index 4. So similarly you have your indices starting from 0 to the total length of the string minus 1. So that is what it is doing. So this is how you can access individual elements of the string. So if I want to access my first character of my string, so what I will do is I will use my index 0. So this index 0 is telling me that I want to access or I want to get hold of only my first character of this entire string. So index is similar to your roll number where it relates a number to the character of the string. So each and every character has an index. So that index you can access by typing in the index number. So it is starting from 0 and it will end at the length of string minus 1. So if I want to print this first character, what I will do is I will use my 0th index. So if I want to print my second character, for example, I will use my index 1. So that is how I am able to print or access the individual or like the sub elements of a particular string. So next thing what I will have is, so in this entire string I have hello and world. So what if I wanted to access only hello separately so that I can print hello or I can use this string is in some other place. So what you can try to do is you can access only the different parts or you can access a range of indices. For example, indices is starting from 0. So indices will start from 0. Then it is ending at 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. So if you are accessing your indices from 0 to 4, what is happening is it is able to access your indices starting from 0 to the end of the indices, that is 4. So then it will just print hello. Yeah, so what is happening? 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. So what is happening? It is just printing out 0, 1, 2 and 3. Why is it not printing my last one? Because the last indices is not included here. So if I want to print my first 4 letters, that is nothing but hello, HELLO. So if I give it 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4, the last digit is not printing because it is not considering till the last index number. So it is nothing but your last indices is not included. So if you want to print the entire string, you need to increase the string number. So that is what. So if you want to print 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4, you need to mention it as the 5th index. So it is nothing but till 5th index. So it is starting from the 0th index and it is printing till 5th index. So that is why it is printing till your, that is why you need to mention the next index also. So it is nothing but starting from 0 and printing till 5th. So 5th one is not included. So what is 5? It is a blank space. So if I want to start from my, if I want to just print my world instead of hello. So what I will do is I will start from my index, that is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So I will start from 6. So what I will do is 6 is there, 7, 8, 9, 10 and 11. So what if I type 11? So it will not print my whole string, it will print WORLD. So why? It is nothing but 6 is included, 7, 8, 9 and 10. So till 11, but 11 is not included. So that is why it is printing my whole string. So if I want to just print my world, that is nothing but I will start from my starting index and end at my ending index. So that is how you can access your string. So what if you will access your negative number? So if I want to access my last character, so I can't keep on counting 1, 2, 3, 4. So what I will do is I can use my negative numbers, that is nothing but -1, -2, -3 to denote my end of the string. So if I use -1, it will start printing from the last one. So if I want to print my last word of my string, I will use -1. So that is printing my last word. So if I want to print my last but one, I will use -2. So that will print my last but one word. So L. So that is how you can access. So what if you want to reverse your string? So what is reversal of string? So reversal of string is nothing but from backward to forward. So if you want to reverse your string, it is nothing but you need to print D, L, R, O, W, then space. So you have an option or you have a shortcut called as colon -1. So what is this colon -1 telling is, I have my string which is starting from 0th index to the end of my whole, like the whole string. But if I tell it is -1, so then the whole order gets reversed. So one more thing I would like to tell you is, you don't need to mention it also. So by default it will be considered as 0. So if I don't mention my starting index, so you don't need to mention it from 0 to 5. You can just mention it as, you can leave a space, then colon, then 5. By default it is considering it as 0. So if you don't mention it, mention the starting, that is nothing but the starting index. So by default it will consider it as 0. So if you don't mention it as the ending index, so by default it will consider as the last index, that is nothing but the length of the string. So very like good here. So you don't need to mention your first index, that is nothing but the starting index. It will consider it as my starting, that is nothing but 0. If I don't mention my ending index, that is nothing but the last one, it will consider it as the end of the string. So if I don't mention both my starting and ending index, what will happen? It will print me the whole string. So this is the thing. So it is printing me my whole string, but the thing that I need to do right now is I need to reverse my whole string. So to reverse my whole string, what I am doing is I am using a colon and -1. So this colon and -1 is telling me reverse the whole string and print it. So if I use colon and -1, so that is how it reversed my whole string. So my whole string is reversed. So the shortcut to reverse your string is colon and -1. So colon is telling that consider each and every the element, that is my starting element, that is from my 0th index to the length of my whole string. but I want it in a reverse order. That is why I am using colon and -1. That is telling me print it in the reverse order. So that is what is your basic operations that you can perform using your string. And the next thing is about the string concatenation. So what do you mean by concatenation of two string? So if I have hello in one string, so I will have a string 2 that will have world. So this is my second part of the string. So what if I want to store it in a third string, so which will concatenate both my strings. So what is concatenation? It is nothing but joining my strings. So here I have hello and here I have world. So if I want to join these two strings, so I can use my plus operation. So what is this plus doing? It is joining my both strings. So that is what it is doing. So if I want to print out my str3, which is nothing but my joint value of string 1 and string 2, it should print hello and world. So that is how you join two strings. So to join two strings, you can use your symbol, that is plus. So plus is acting as a concatenation operator where it is joining two strings. So that is what your plus operator is doing. So it is joining two strings. Okay, so what you can do still more is you can multiply your string. For example, if I want hello to be printed 5 times, so I can use my string 1, that is hello, and multiply it by 5. So then I will try to print str3. So what is happening is the same string is getting printed multiple times, or it is getting stored multiple times. So if I want my hello to be printed 5 times, what is happening is, if I multiply by using a constant number which is telling me how many times that should the string be copied, that is nothing but multiplied. So it is repeating itself. So it is nothing but repetition operator. So if you want to repeat all the string again and again, so if you want that to be stored, the repetition of all the strings, that is the string which you have chosen, you can use this star operator to repeat the string into several times. So how many times is nothing but mentioned by the constant. So the constant is telling you how many times should the string be multiplied. So that is what is your constant telling. So if you want to print the string, it is pretty simple. You can just print in the string and you can use a multiplication operator with now how many times it needs to be printed. So that is with string multiplication. Okay, so we understood how a string is used with the help of indices, and you understood how you can manipulate with using indices, and you understood as well as the plus and the star operator. So the next thing that comes into picture is while printing. So what if I have to print some variables in the middle of my string? So you have your print statement. So that is nothing but okay, for example, you want to add variable. So my name is, so it is stored in variable. So if I want to use this variable here, so what should I do if I want to include variables inside my inside the middle of my string? So if I want to print some values, so what if I want to use some variables inside the string operators? So what I will try to do is I will initialize a number as well as I will initialize a number that is nothing but 21. So I will initialize a name that will be John. Okay, so then I will initialize a floating point value that is nothing but I will initialize a floating point value that is 12.543. Then 128.43, so that I will initialize. So then I will also initialize a Boolean value. So this is the thing that I want to initialize, but I want to include all this in the middle of my string. So if I want to add this in the middle of my string, what I will do is I will use some escape sequences, or I can use some data insertion operator. So how will I use, or how will I add this data into my whole string is pretty simple. So what I will do is I will just type in the print statement, my name is. So what I will do is I will try to add the string here. So to add a string in the middle of your print statement, you need to use %s. So this %s is telling me that the string is added in the middle. You don't need to close this. So my name is %s and my age is my age is an integer. So integer you will denote it by %d, and my height is is a floating value. So how will you initialize your height as a floating value? So if you want to initialize your height as a floating value, it is pretty simple. So floating value is denoted by percentage f. So then you will try to close this. Okay, so this is done, but you need to mention what are all the variables that you are trying to use, because my name is John, so my age is 21 and my height is 128.45, and yeah, my height is 127.45, so I don't need to print this true, so I will just remove this true. So this I want to do. So what to do now is pretty simple. So what I will do is I want to print this all variables. So how will I print my variables? I will use my variable name. So it will be str1. So before using my variable name, I need to give another percentage symbol. So then the first variable I need to print is a string str1. Then I need to print my age, that is x. Then I need to print my height, that is y. So this is how my print statement is getting executed. So my name is John, my age is 21 and my height is 128.4500. So to print any, that is nothing but string, you can use percentages in the middle of the string. So to print any integer, you can use percentage d. So to print any floating point, you can use percentage f. So that is how you can add some values or you can add some variables in the middle of the string. So it is nothing but joining the new variables in the middle of an entire string by using percentages, percentage d and percentage f. Yeah, so that is how you can print all your values. But the thing about boolean you need to try to understand is, if you want to try to print a boolean, so there is no format specifier. So we call these particular things as format specifiers, which will specify which format should my print statements be printed. So very important to understand the format specifiers. So after specifying the format, what you need to try to do is, if you want to print the boolean format, so there is no format specifier for boolean format by default, but the thing that you need to understand right now is, for printing booleans, you can use your, that is your percentage d, that is nothing but integer. So what will happen if I use an integer is, instead of true, you will print it as 1. So it is very simple. So what I told you is, true is equivalent to 1 always. So and false is equivalent to 0. So you can't print a boolean value directly as true or false, but you can print its equivalent, that is nothing but 0 or 1, by using the percentage specifier, that is percentage d. So that is possible for booleans. So what if I use my percentage s here? So it is directly printing my values of the boolean. So you can either use percentage s or percentage d for boolean, so which will print its value if you use percentage s. So if you use percentage d, it will print your 0 or 1 equivalent of true or false. So for true it is always 1 and for false it is always 0. So after this, we'll try to move on with some basic string operations. So what are my basic string operations that we'll try to understand? So I will initialize my string first. So I will initialize my variable, that is nothing but str1 is my variable string. So this is an example. Okay. So this is an example, is a string that I want to store now. Okay, so this is the string that I want to store now. But the thing you need to understand is, there are many functions that are available in this particular Python programming language, which is making your tasks very, very easy. So what is the first thing that you need to understand is, so you can use your for loop within this particular string variable. So for example, if you want to access each and every element of the string, so if I want to check how many vowels are there, how many consonants are there, I want to check each and every character of my particular string, or access each and every character of my string. But the problem is, I need to access each and every time my index. So if I want to access my 0, if I want to access my first element, I can use 0, 1, 2, 3 indices respectively. But the major thing that you need to understand is, you can't keep doing it for each and every character. So that is why you have your looping statement. So how to access each and every individual character of a string is pretty simple. For I in str1, so this I can be any variable. For example, it can be for character in a string 1, or for a variable var in string 1. So it can be any variable. So I will choose I because it is very easy for me to explain. So str1 is the whole variable. So if I want to print each and every element, that is nothing but each and every character of my entire string. So what is this for I in str1? It is nothing but in my first iteration, it is nothing but t in this entire string. So then it will be h, then it will be s, I and s, then it will be the empty string. So that is how it is accessing each and every character. So if I want to print this I, what will happen is, so it is printing out each and every character of my string. So it is getting access to each and every character of my string. So that is how this for loop is very beautiful and very useful in case of strings and in case of other data types that is not available in any other programming languages. So if you want to print just your single characters from your entire string, you can use for I in str1. So what is this for I in str1 doing is, for each and every individual character in my whole string, so I want to access this. So that is what is my for I in str1. So that will print my each and everything, or you can use any if condition, or you can alter something to get your like whole usability. So if I want to print my only vowels or something, so if I is equal to A or E or I O U, so if I is belonging into A, I, O, U, so then it will not print that particular, I mean it will just you can count the number of vowels and consonants, or you can even print the vowels and consonants. So that is how it is being so easy in this particular like Python programming language. So if you consider Java or C, C++, again you need to access the index, so then you need to mention what is the length of your index. So that is how you would work. But in Python it is directly accessing your elements and you can use it. So that is one example with help of Python. So some standard basic functions are there. So what you could do is, if you want to capitalize. So what is capitalizing? So if you want to make the first letter of your sentence capitalized, so there are many situations. What happens is, you forget to like make your sentence heading as capital or the first letter of your sentence to be capital. So that would cause a problem. So there is an inbuilt function called as capitalize. So what you can do is, you can print that whole thing, str1 dot capitalize. So if you use this capitalize function, so what will happen is, so if your first letter of your sentence is not capital, so then it will convert this into the capital letter format. So capitalize is an inbuilt function, so where you can convert your first letter of your sentence or first letter of your string as a capital one. So if it is already capital, so it will print the same thing, so it won't change anything. So if it is a small letter, so then it will try to capitalize. It is nothing but making your first letter of your string capital. So that is what is the basic function. So you can apply it to the string. So string name is str1. So str1 dot capitalize is nothing but it is capitalizing this for string 1, then it is printing. So that is what it is doing. So you can store the same thing in a variable, that is nothing but you can store it in a variable, that is a string variable called x, and again you can print x. So that is also possible. So it allows you to store it in different variables. So if you print x, it is the same thing, it is capitalizing, but it is storing in another variable called as an x now. So that is also possible with the help of this capitalize function or any other function for that matter in case of Python. Okay, so then what we are trying to do is, there is a other function called as center function. So what is this center function is pretty beautiful to understand. For example, what happens is, you would have created a string called this is an example, but the problem is sometimes for printing purposes you would need to leave these spaces at the beginning and these number of spaces at the end. So what will happen now is, if you want to leave these many spaces at the beginning and these many spaces at the end, so you would like to manually take append these particular things, nothing but append these spaces manually, starting and like before the whole string and ending the whole strings, you need to do it manually. But the thing that you need to consider right now is, you don't need to do that manually. You have a function called as you have a function called a center function. So what is center function doing is, it will see what is the width of your entire string and you can fill it with anything. You can fill it with a star. So for example, while you're printing bills, so you need this whole format like star, and you can end it with the particular format that is star. So what is happening is, between the string, that is nothing but from the starting and ending, it is appending some important data. So what is this data that it is appending is nothing but it is appending whatever data that you want to fill in. So for example, if I want to fill star between this whole the starting and this ending of the string, what I will do is, I will use this str1 dot, so I will print this str1 dot str1 dot center. So this is the thing. So what I will do is I will tell that my total string, the total length or the total size or the total width that I want is around 50 characters. So to fill up my 50 characters, here also I will append some like empty spaces or whatever characters you want. So first thing is I will append some empty spaces. Okay, so this if I append, what will happen? So my total length is 50, so I try to append equal number of spaces here, that is nothing but here, then equal number of spaces here after the end of the string. So that is what it did. So with spaces you can't identify, but with stars or dollars or any other symbol you can identify. So my total length is 50. To adjust the length as 50, what did it do? It appended some dummy characters here. So what is this center doing is, I want to make this whole string as my center. So before the starting of my string and after the ending of my string, it is appending some empty characters or any other like words, characters or data that you want, it is trying to append. So that is what is your center function doing. So this center function adds some data before and after your string to make your string that is nothing but to tell that how your string is appending some empty values as well. So that is what it is doing. The next thing that you need to consider or that we will try to understand is pretty simple. So the next thing is nothing but your string.count function. So what is this count function actually doing and how this particular thing is helping you is pretty simple. So this count function, what it is doing you is, it is telling us how many times a particular small string has appeared in my entire sentence. So for example, I will change my string. This is an example. Okay, this is an example is my string. So this is also a good tutorial. So okay, and this is helpful. So I have repeated the word called this many a times. So if I want to see how many times this has been appeared in my entire whole string, so I would use the function called as count. So this count is telling me that what is the string that I want to search for. So this count has three things. So what is the string that I need to search for? What is the starting index and what is the ending index? So if you don't tell what is the starting and what is the ending index, by default it will consider as the 0 and the ending index by default. But the thing that you need to consider is you need to tell what is the substring you want to count. For example, if you want to count how many times this has occurred, so you can take in this option that is nothing but you can take in the substring here, then you can use it to access how many times it has occurred. So for example, I want to see how many times this has occurred in my entire string. So I will just use this count function to see how many times this substring has occurred. I won't mention any index because I am considering it as the whole string. So if you consider it as a whole string, you don't need to mention what is the starting and ending point. So it is telling me 3 times. So in this entire string, so this word like nothing but the word this is appearing 3 times. So what I will do is I will do some simple changes. I don't want to start it from my 0th index. I will start it from my 10th index. So if I start from my 10th index, by default it will take it till my end of the string. So by default it is taking it as my end of the string. Here I am not mentioning what is the end of the string. So this is the thing that we need to consider. So this is my starting of the string. So if I need to mention an ending of my string, that is nothing but 20. So it will tell me how many times it is appearing. So my starting of the string is 10. So if I want to see how many times this has appeared in like from 10 to 20, it is nothing but 0 times. So that is very important. So it is nothing but what is the substring that you are trying to find inside the whole string? What is the starting and ending point? So if you don't mention the starting and ending point, by default it will consider it for the whole string. So this is how your count function is working. So count is telling us how many times a particular thing has been appeared in your particular whole string. So counting has been made much more easier. Before you need to compare each and every word or each and every character. So this can be used for even character also. So you can see how many times the word T is repeated in this particular whole sentence. So T has been repeated for 5 times. So that is how you can use it for even characters as well as a group of characters, that is nothing but strings. So the next thing that we'll try to learn is how to print the length of the string. So what is length of the string? So this length of string will tell me that what is the total number of characters my string is having. So this will include even white spaces, special characters, anything that you will use, that will be included here. So length is telling me how many characters of my total string is being used here. So to get the length of the string, it is pretty simple. You can use the like the function, or you can use the function called len. So len will get me the entire length of the string. So the total length of my string is 57. So if you have enough patience, you can count it, but I think it is always right. You don't need to count it. So len is telling me what is the length of my string. So what is length? It is starting from 1, 2, 3. It is counting each and every character of my string, and it is fetching me what are the total number of characters that are there inside my whole string. So this is my length of the string property, which is explained here. So to get the length of the string, it is pretty simple. You can use len function to get the length of your whole string. So that is one important fact that we'll be using each and every time. Okay, so after that you have the function called as starts with or ends with. So what this starts with or ends with is doing is pretty simple. So it will tell you whether the particular string is starting with this particular substring or it is ending with this particular substring. For example, if I want to see whether my sentence starts with the word this or not. So what I will do is, I will see whether my string is starting with that particular word or not. So what I will do is, I will use my function called as starts with. So after using my function, I want to tell which word is it trying to start with. So I want to check whether it is starting with the word this or not. So then I won't mention anything because I want to see it for my entire string. So you can even take in substrings also. You can check it from third index, you can check it from fifth index also, that is also possible. But I will see it for my entire string. So whether my string str1 will start with the word called as this. So what this will return is a true or false. So you can see that it is starting with this, so that is why it returned a true. So this is not returning a string as an output, but it is returning a boolean as an output. So what is important to understand here is, it is trying to check whether my string is beginning with this particular prefix or a small string or not. So similarly, you have a string called as ends with also. So if I want to check whether this particular string, I don't want to check for the entire string, what I will do is, whether it is beginning, so whether this string str1 starts with this from index starting from 5 to index starting from 10. So my index, I will tell what is the starting and ending index. So whether that begins with this, that is false, because what is my fifth index? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So it is not beginning with starts with, it is beginning with is. So that is very important to understand. So I can even mention what is the starting and ending index of this particular thing. So similar to starts with, you have your ends with. So if you want to check whether your string ends with this particular data, what I will try to do is, yes, it is starting with this, also ending with this. So what I will do is, I will use this, so it is telling me true. Why it is telling me true? My string is ending with this. So whether if I want to check whether my string is ending with and, so I will just check. So it is false because my string is not ending with and, it is ending with this. So this is a very simple example to see whether your string starts with or ends with any particular data. So very important. So this practical use case example. So what I could do here is very simple. So Indian phone number starts with +91. So I will type any phone number. So this is my phone number. Okay. So this is my phone number that I have stored here. So Indian phone number starts with +91. So I will use the function called as starts with. Okay, I will use this function called as starts with. So it is starts with, then what I will do is, I will use the if statement here. So if it is starting with +91, okay, so if my string str1 starts with +91, so it is nothing but returning a boolean. So if it returns with a boolean, you don't need to equate it with a true. So that is not required. So even if you leave it as it is, so if the answer is true, then it will execute the next part of the statement. So you don't need to mention it as true. So even if you mention it this as true, and like if you don't mention it also, it is not a problem. So then I will print that this number is from India. Since it is from +91, it is telling that this number is India. So if it is from USA, it is +1. So then it is not printing anything. So this is how you can use your data. So if you don't mention double equal to true also, it is also fine. So why I mentioned double equal to true? Always you understand that starts with and ends with functions. Always take in a data, that is the data which is nothing but your string as an example. So it is nothing but it is returning your boolean. So it is not returning a string, it is returning your boolean. So that is why you need to understand that your standard function, so that is nothing but your Python function, that is nothing but starts with and ends with, always takes a boolean as an output. So it is returning a boolean as an output. So that is how you can use it in practical use case scenarios. So it is, guys, it is not just about like executing this, but think where you can use it practically. Think where these functions will help you by not writing large code. So in other programming languages, you need to write large code to even implement some smaller functions. But with Python, the functionality is such that you don't need to use large number of functions and large number of data to like large number of, you don't need to manually write in any function. So most of the functions are written within the programming language. That will help you gain more and more functionalities with the programming language with less effort. So that is what we are trying to do. So done with starts with and ends with. So okay, so then we have another thing that is nothing but okay, so we have something called as find. So what is find is pretty good. So if I have my string 1, that is nothing but this, okay, I will write my string 1, this is nothing but this is John. Okay, I will use a practical scenario. So this is my email ID and it is abcd@yahoo.com. Okay. So what I want to do is pretty simple. So if I want to find out whether that person has written an email ID or not. So if that person has written an email ID, okay, if the person has written an email ID, so what is the important thing is this symbol @ and .com will be there. So what if I get this, what is the important thing that I'll be trying to do is I will be finding which index is this @ presented. So if I find out which index is that @ presented, I can find out the domain name or the email server which the person is using. I want to find out how many people are using Gmail or Yahoo. I want to find whether that person is using Gmail or Yahoo. To find that, I want to find where actually this @ index or where actually that @ is present. So that is why you have a function called as find function. So what is this find function doing is pretty simple. So I will use this str1.find. So this is my string. So I want to find out where actually my string, that is my substring @ is present. So in which index my @ is present. So what this will do is this will search my whole particular string, and wherever my first occurrence of this particular letter comes in or my particular substring comes in, so it will stop there and fetch my index. So for example, this is at index, for example 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, it is around like 20 or 30 index. So wherever it finds out at first, so it will stop there and it will try to fetch the index of that particular character or a group of characters that I am looking for. So it is 31. So it is telling me that my @ is present at my @ symbol is present at 31st index. So what if I want to try to print out what is my Gmail ID? I will try to print it out from 32 till the end of my string. So if I don't mention anything, it will try to print out what is the end of the string. So that is why it is printing me yahoo.com. So very beautiful use cases here. So where you can apply it in your real life use cases, not for just executing examples. So very simple. So if you want to find out where your actual characters or set of characters, so what is the starting index of those characters? So I can use the built-in function called as find, where it will find which is the starting set of characters or which is the index of that particular substring. So which is the starting index of that particular substring. So it is 11. So whenever I want to find my word called as email, so it is starting from the index 11. So that is very important here. So it is trying to find out what is the starting index of my substring. So I can even mention what is the range. For example, if it is from 34 to 39. So if it is not present, it is trying to give -1. So very important, guys. If it is able to find that particular substring, it will give us the index. So if it is not able to find this email within 34 to 39th index numbers, so it will try to give us what? It will try to give us nothing but a -1. So -1 is indicating that this particular data is not present in my entire string. So that is what it is doing. So after that, we have a couple of things to discuss as well. So what we have is pretty simple. So if I want to, the same function is there. So I have a function called as index, so which is exactly same as my find function. But the thing with index is, so it will also give the same index numbers, what is the starting index, but if it is not able to find that particular substring, so if it is not able to find email from 34 to 39, so what it will do is, it will, one second. If it is not able to find the particular, that is nothing but your indexes, if it is not able to find the starting index, so it will tell that it is an error. So one second. So what it is trying to do is, it is trying to find out the email. So it should close here. Yeah, now it is perfect. So if it is not able to find, it will tell that substring is not found. So this will raise an error or exception. But in case of your find function, so it won't raise an error or exception. It will give you a -1. So if you want an error that needs to occur when this particular substring is not found in the indexes between 34 and 39, what will happen is this index function will raise an exception, but this find function will not raise an exception. Other than that, both the functionalities are exactly same. Okay, so both the functionalities are exactly same, so that is not an issue. So this will give us -1. So if it is not there, so if the substring is not there, this will raise an error. That is nothing but index. So the other things that I will discuss quickly are, what is particular thing? So use cases. So let us use the use case. So what I will do is, I will ask the user to enter his name. So, but that particular person enters number. So if I will ask him to enter his name, so if that particular person enters random number, so what is the problem? So in some forms that you want to fill out in a website, you need only nothing but characters or English alphabets in your name. You don't want it to be numbers. So what you will do is, you will check whether that particular thing consists of only alphabet. So that is why you have a function called as isAlpha. So that will check whether this particular string contains only alphabets or not. So this is false. Why? Because this contains only numbers. So even if I have one digit number also, it will give you a false. Only if all the digits are alphabets, so then it will give you a true. So use case scenario, name should have only alphabets, they should not have any numbers. So similar other use cases, phone number. So if I have phone numbers, so if I have this particular phone number, so I want to check whether this is a phone number or not. So what I will do is, I will check each digit. So each digit is a function to check whether the string consists of only numbers. So if it is true, if it contains only numbers, it will return a true, else it return a false. For example, by mistake I will enter a number that is nothing but I will enter an alphabet. So that is like a bad thing, right? So you don't need to enter a number enter an alphabet inside the number. All you need to do is, you need to enter nothing but only number should be there. So that is there. So then you have functions like is lower. So only lowercase letter. So if you want to check whether the string contains only lowercase letters, you have functions that is lower, whether it will check whether a string has only lowercase. So if it is yes, it will print out a boolean. So even if one of your character in the string has upper letters, so then it will return a false. So that is your lower. So similarly you have is upper, so where it will just check for your upper character also. So then you have one thing that is nothing but is al num. So for example, in some cases you should have only a combination of your numbers and your alphabets. So is al num is telling us whether it is either a number or alphabet. So no special character. So if special characters are there, it will give you a false. So that is why it is checking out. So if it is only combination of numbers and alphabets, it will give you a returning true. If you have some special characters, it will return a false. Yes, because it is not containing only your number and alphabets. So that is there. Okay, then you have the last part that is nothing but you have is. Okay, after this, so there is one thing called as is space. So is space will check out whether this particular string is a space or not. So it is whether either a single space or a group of spaces. So it is checking whether whether the string contains only tab spaces. So if it is there, then it will have your characters that is being involved. For example, if I have this particular thing, so if I have this characters being involved, so then it should print me false. So that is what it is printing. So if character is being involved, it will print out a false. Okay, so after that we have something called as this will check for only empty spaces. So it is checking whether your string has only empty spaces. So if your string doesn't have it is not only if it is made up of any other thing other than empty spaces, so then it will pose error. So if it is only an empty space, so then it will consider it as true. So the last part that we will try to understand is nothing but your split functions and as well as your lower and upper. So if you want to convert all your strings to lowercase or uppercase, for example, I have my string that is name that is consisting of only lowercase letters. So what I will do is I will use a function called as upper, which will convert my string into uppercase. So that is there. So if my string is in uppercase, so if I want to convert it to lowercase, I can use this function called as lower to convert my entire string into lowercase. So that is happening here. So that is also one possibility. So you can convert it into upper and lower cases. So that is also there. So then what you can do is you can do something called as minimum and maximum of a string. So for example, so if you want to print out maximum of str1, so what will this maximum of str1 print? So it is printing out n. So what is happening is, so each and every character will have its own ASCII character. So ASCII is what? So your whatever input that you type in your keyboard is not in the form of ABCD, it is in the form of ASCII numbers. So those numbers will be converted to your alphabets which can be used. So this is nothing but converting it into your ASCII numbers. So A has the smallest ASCII while N has the largest ASCII. So it is considered N as my maximum. So you can find out which character has the maximum ASCII in your particular string. So that is also possible. So basically A has the minimum ASCII. So N has the maximum ASCII. So it is telling you which has the maximum and minimum ASCII. So that is also one part. So the next thing that I want to find out is very simple. So I have a sentence that is nothing but I am good in Python. So I have a sentence that is nothing but I am good in Python. So this is my sentence. So the next thing that I want to try out is I want to split my string into individual words. So I don't want all my different words in my sentence. I want them as individual words. So what will I do is I will use my str1.split function. So if I use my split function, what is happening is by default it will consider it as white spaces. So what if I want to split my whole string into individual characters? So if I want only the words I am good in Python, I don't want spaces in middle, I want these things as separate quantities. So I can use this split function, so which will split my entire data into individual words. So I split into I am good in Python. So each and every word is split into lists. So this data type is called list. So I will come to what is list and how to execute list. So what this split is doing is it is converting your entire string. So it is splitting it into different parts. So what if I didn't have any spaces, I had underscore. So I want to split it at underscore. So I can use the delimiter. So what is delimiter is nothing but a point where it will split. So any point in the string where it wants to split this, I will use this underscore option. So the same thing I will get, because wherever I encounter an underscore, my string is split into different parts. So that is why, yeah, if by default it is nothing but a white space, you don't need to mention anything if it is a white space. But if you want to, that is nothing but if you want to split it with different, for example, if you want to use a string that is nothing but a character A, B, C, D. So if you want to split your string there, so that is there. So you can use characters as well. So that is not a problem. But you can split it in those ways also, because see, I is split into one part. I am good at Python is split into other part because it is splitting at A. So you can use this to split to any character. So that is also there. And you can use it to split white spaces. So if you don't give anything, so that will be white spaces as well. So this was the basic thing about Python. So we will be continuing Python with other data types, that is nothing but lists, tuples and dictionaries. So this was the basic part about Python. So we will be continuing it in the next part, where we will deal with other data structures also. Hope you had a good session understanding some basic concepts in Python, and thank you.